Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. We have some more news to talk about with XRP today, as well as looking at the price charts for Bitcoin and XRP. So let's go ahead and get started with the latest going on with Bitcoin. The Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index is now at 15 extreme fear territory. We're looking on the lower end of $59,000 when this was being reported. So we are very close to single digits. It may not actually dip that far down. We might start to see it come up just a little bit. There are fears of it having that death cross. So yes, longer term, we might still see some more sell pressure, especially with the fact that it was just mentioned yesterday that with MicroStrategy, it's been approved. They can actually start selling some Bitcoin. And when I say some, I'm talking about over $1 billion worth. So whenever that happens, it could cause a bit of an issue on the market itself. But we do see it's pulled back some since that news came out. Not as bad as what I thought it could possibly be. Just shows that with everything else going on, maybe people are getting slightly burnt out on the sell pressure side. But yeah, there's definitely still a chance we could still see some more downside. What's interesting is that we just had a short indicator, so several different indicators crossing over, suggesting a short position entry on June 27th. And here we are, June 30th. Already it's suggesting a long entry. And we do see that it's dipped down quite a bit. We actually were close to around $58,100 on the low for the day. It's now sitting at about $58,500, so up just slightly. But you guys can also see volume pretty high yesterday. It's comparable to what we were seeing, say, back around June 25th, which was a Thursday. Not as much as what we saw on Wednesday or Friday of last week. But volume itself today already, it's more than what we saw on Sunday. Not surprising. Typically, you'll see the crypto market quiet down on the weekends. Like we'll see a lot of activity happening for stocks on Monday, for gold and silver, precious metals, maybe activity going on with the war, especially with what's been going on between the United States and Iran. A lot of those moves or announcements tend to happen on a Friday or a Saturday, or sorry, a Friday or a Monday, and then it's after markets close, before markets open, that kind of a thing. Okay, so now also let's go ahead and zoom out a tad bit here. We are still very close to that Fibonacci retracement line for Bitcoin. That's at $63,200. You can actually see that back here around June 15th, the amount of distance that we have going up is pretty comparable to the amount of distance that we had going down with where we currently are. So it makes sense that this looks like it's consolidating. It really fell on that line going from about June 19th all the way here to June 23rd. And then we have those irregular days just kind of leading up to it back here when we had that drop take place going into June 5th, June 6th, climbed a little bit, got rejected, broke through, didn't last very long, bounced off the bottom. You guys see what I'm talking about here. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on around this level. This is very important here. The Bollinger Band itself is starting to diverge a tiny bit, but more or less it's consolidating. We can zoom out even more here. So you guys can see it doesn't stay completely straight. It can have some deviations taking place. This Bollinger Band, even though the price did climb, it stayed fairly closed throughout this period. We can even zoom out even more. Going from roughly February 25th all the way here to May 30th. And then we saw that divergence take place. Price actually dropped down during that time. Last time we saw that happen before as well was around January 20th. The fact is, we keep zooming out. These Bollinger Bands, when they started to diverge, it led to drops. There's another drop. So last time we had one that was a real nice climb was actually back here around July 9th. So Bitcoin itself, still trying to hang in there, not doing so great. We're actually looking at the bottom of the Bollinger Band, the bottom line here, and that's where we're at currently. That drops down below. Keep an eye on 55,000, 50,000, and then down here at $48,200. Now moving on, the next 2 weeks are critical for the crypto market structure bill. In recess until July 13th, Senate staff and key industry leaders are working to resolve the bill's remaining issues. The bill needs 60 votes to pass and is expected to hit the Senate floor in late July or early August. If the Clarity Act does not pass the Senate before the August recess, its chances of becoming law this year are almost dead. And just recently we saw Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO at Ripple. He spoke out So Squawk on the Streets said from a quote, "I think Team Michael Saylor wasn't focused on the right stuff. And that has hurt the overall market." And they're tagging him saying that he pulls no punches, laying blame for the recent volatility in crypto, basically on Michael Saylor's. And so Brad Garlinghouse followed up with this saying, "Financial engineering does not drive long-term value, utility does." So essentially he's doubling down. And Smoke says, yes, Ripple facilitates real-time blockchain-based payments between Thailand and Japan. And this comes after CoinDesk reported Thailand's central bank announces a bot-backed stablecoin for interbank settlement, with public consultation starting before year-end. And from Rippleziety, XRP ledgers solve the problem outlined by the BIS for public blockchains. The BIS says public blockchains can't be the monetary base, fees spike with congestion, finality is shaky, stablecoins lack institutional rigor. They just described the problem that the XRP ledger already solved. And the White House meets with law enforcement groups to resolve the Clarity Act objections, with Senate Majority Leader Thune suggesting he may bring the bill to a floor vote in July, whether Democrats are ready or not. Ripple proposed on-chain lending for banks on the XRP ledger, borrow against tokenized assets, credit stays human, execution goes fully on-chain. Idle collateral just became working capital. XRP spot ETFs record $15.34 million net inflow on June 29th, led by Bitwise XRP ETF at $11.94 million and Canary XRPC at $3.4 million, bringing cumulative net inflows to $1.485 billion. Ripple Prime is now inside DTCC's tokenization working group. Here's how Ripple walked into the $114 trillion settlement giant, bought Hidden Road, rebranded it Ripple Prime, listed on NSCC, joined DTCC's group. Same room as Goldman, JP Morgan, and BlackRock. Ripple has proposed a lending protocol for the XRP ledger that would let institutions borrow against tokenized assets. Bitwise XRP ETF, XRP, recorded an $11.94 million net inflow on June 29th, lifting cumulative net inflows to $505.17 million since its November 2025 launch. The fund's net assets stand at $312.3 million, with a premium discount of 0.52% and daily volume of 547.93 thousand shares, $6.47 million value traded. XRP exposure represents 0.47% of total fund share. The trend reflects sustained allocation toward Bitwise's product, despite a broader decline in daily inflow volume across the sector since debut. Ripple proposes the XRPL lending protocol, letting banks and payment providers borrow against tokenized assets directly on the XRP ledger. Ripple just dropped something that could change how institutions use XRPL forever. It's called the XRPL lending protocol, and it's not another DeFi yield farm. It's credit infrastructure. XRP Ledger records strongest new wallet growth in 3 months amid price near $1 support. Bitwise and Canary clients purchased $15.34 million worth of XRP. Ripple proposed an XRPL lending protocol to borrow against tokenized assets, pending support from over 80% of validators. And this is a warning from Crypto Rover. 92% of Europe's crypto industry will disappear by tomorrow. Only 244 crypto firms have secured a MiCA license ahead of tomorrow's deadline. Europe previously had more than 3,000 registered crypto companies. That means roughly 92% are still not fully authorized under MiCA. Starting July 1st, firms without a license must stop serving EU users or face enforcement. This marks one of the biggest regulatory shakeups in crypto ever. And from Evernorth XRP, the worry we keep hearing: as RLUSD grows on XRP, RLUSD starts to eat XRP. We pulled every RLUSD trade on chain to check. To date, the data shows the opposite. And let's go ahead and continue. BlackRock just deposited $340 million worth of Bitcoin and Ethereum to Coinbase Prime. The United States debt now exceeds 100% of GDP for the first time since World War II. And JP Morgan just admitted crypto is becoming the core of the financial system. The bank says stablecoins, tokenization, and programmable money are now moving directly into mainstream finance and could completely transform payments and markets. And this comes right as the Clarity Act enters its final negotiation phase in Washington. If passed, the bill could finally give crypto clear federal rules for exchanges, tokens, stablecoins, and digital asset markets. Wall Street is no longer asking whether crypto becomes part of finance. They are preparing for the regulatory framework that brings it fully into the system. And lastly, just taking a look here at the latest price movement going on for XRP, we can clearly see that we are at about the amount of daily volume, or price movement, I should say, for yesterday. The volume itself, we're on track right now, probably going to pass what we had on Sunday. It makes sense because, again, it's the weekend. As it is, could we actually hit the same amount of volume of what we had yesterday? It's a possibility. We can take a look at the last week. You guys can see here, Monday was really low. Tuesday was low. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, those 3 days actually picked up a tad bit. So volume yesterday for Monday was pretty comparable to what we saw on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday last week. But as it is for Tuesday itself right now, it has some movement that it's going to need to really try and push forward. And we can see it, the low on the day was at about $1.03, a little bit less than that. The high on the day, well, that was the starting point. So essentially it's just dropped down and trying to recover a tad bit. Still above $1, has not broken below $1 yet. Got really close back here on June 26th. And just zooming out a tad bit, Bollinger Band starting to widen just a tad bit, but more or less looking like it's probably in a consolidated zone. And keep an eye on a dollar, below $1. Really key point is going to be down here at 87 cents. And yeah, that's basically it for today's video. So thank you guys. And thank you to my Patreon supporters. I'm Crypto Atlas over there. Thank you to my YouTube members. And God bless. We'll see you guys in the next video. Stay safe. Peace.